Hello, hello. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I am Catherine Yu from S2C11, and today I'll give you a speech on the topic of loss with a connection of economics. Well, first, let's think of this whole society as a giant organism. Well, economic is the brain, which determines the basic functioning principle and establishes an efficient working mechanism. While business are those thousands of cells and organs cooperating freely and trading with each other under the system of economics. And finance, well, maybe not that familiar to some of you. You could see it as a tool or those various chemicals in our body utilized by businesses to maintain a stable development. And with one more thing added to this intricate system of a society, it will come to life in an instant. And that is cash flow, corresponding to the blood flow in our body. And that, what I just said, was the system, economic system. But sometimes our body might get sick. And I actually just got a fever last month. So is the system of economics. When the system goes wrong, well, there might be something bad happening. You know, like there will be workers on the streets and in town, CEOs and millionaires of many public companies. Basically, everyone around us are enduring losses under such a system. Well, 2008, this is actually a special year. This is the year where the Olympic Games took place in Beijing. This is the year when I was born. Yet this is also the year a monster called Lost enveloped the whole world. Within days, businesses suffered from bankruptcy, and the real estate market fell into a complete turmoil. Unemployment and also suicide rates ratcheted to a new high. One of the businesses who went bankrupt was the Lehman Brothers. It is the fourth largest investment bank in the U.S., behind Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. And the collapse of this firm indicates the climax of an event. And that event is the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis. Well, how did this happen? How did such a massive loss happen? Well, from the name subprime, which means not so good in quality, this financial crisis was triggered by the subprime mortgage crisis in the US. The story dates back 2 decades ago, where everyone thinks the real estate market and also the economy is thriving and growing in a fast speed. And the government wants people to buy more houses in order to boost the real estate market. Well, those people who had enough money already bought houses, but those who didn't have that much money couldn't afford to buy them. So thus, government gave out loans to those people who could not afford to repay to buy those houses. 2 easy loans created the over-leverage problem, and that led to the bankruptcy of the subprime mortgage lenders. Well, afterwards, when people lose faith in the subprime mortgage securities, well, that actually led to a liquidity crisis. But that's still on the micro level. Well, afterwards, as time spreads and as the crisis spreads, it triggered a more macro and formal debt crisis. And that eventually evolved into a financial storm. Well, who participated in such a massive loss? Indeed, millions of people. From those households and also from those banks and many subprime mortgage lenders. Basically, it is a really complicated problem that involves many parties. Well, loss definitely made a big hit, and it actually, brought, the economy down tremendously. However, if we look at the good side, there is actually a re-established faith after such a disaster. After the 2008 financial crisis, countries and also governments made huge efforts into reforming and also enhancing the financial system. The US Congress has passed the Dodd-Frank law and also the Consumer Protection Law in order to strengthen regulations. And also in Switzerland's Global Banking Regulatory Committee also adopted new laws and capital requirements for big banks. At the same time, many agencies are also created. Government agencies such as the new Consumer Protection Bureau, Financial Stability Oversight Council, and the Office of Financial Research are all established in order to monitor and also prevent those systematic financial crises. A long time ago, a famous economist called Joseph Schumpeter has pointed out that the market will eventually evolve from destroying old goods and introducing new ones. Through what he famously pointed out, the storms of creative destruction. Indeed, loss does bring many bad things, but without loss, and without the faith established after loss, it couldn't have made the economy keep on moving until today. And that is also key and also true in keeping the human society moving forward. Okay, well, and that is also true in keeping the human society moving forward. Well, a long time ago, an old friend of mine came back to me. Well, what a story, isn't it, right? Or maybe some of you might think that, what does such a loss have to do with me? This loss seems pretty tough and far away from us. It just seems unrealistic. Indeed. Well, that sometimes I actually feel like that too. But then one day, an old friend of mine came to me, and that's when I finally realized that in our lifetime, or basically in everyone's lifetime, we all have a friend that will accompany from our first to the last minute. And that friend might be old and grumpy, mean and bossy, but also precious and worthy. And that friend of mine, friend of yours, and friend of everyone is called lost. And loss didn't just came back to me too, but also my grandparents and also my little sister. Well, when loss came to my grandma and grandpa, guess what? Loss actually took away, thousands of dollars from them. And for my little sister, 20,000. Pretty, weird, right? Well, those actually are the most dangerous and deadly losses of all. And these losses are deliberately made traps, luring you into investing stocks and those so-called high-return, low-risk financial products developed by fake companies. And they trick you into believing that you could earn money and also gain many things, while the risk is very low. But actually, in the end, it will turn out just the opposite. And do you know what are they called? They are called frauds. You see, frauds, they are, those really dangerous things that would happen. Well, then, what do it happen when we see frauds? Well, then I actually established on TikTok, and there are actually many other frauds that would appear in our daily life too. You see, on TikTok and WeChat, and also on many other, social media websites that we use day to day. Can you please turn the page? Okay, this are the social media websites that we use daily. TikTok, WeChat, 小红书, Twitter, and also Instagram. And I often use YouTube and also Bilibili. On these websites, this is actually the perfect place for frauds to come, and also those many traps. And there are also type of fraud that would call you by the telephone, saying that, oh, you know what, you actually won a big prize. You can earn $1 million. Give me your credit card number, and you can get that prize. Well, and there are actually many others too, and also many fake advertisements on this kind of platform. So these bad guys often disguise as an investment tutor, which claims that they could help you make very profitable investment while the risk is very low or even risk-free. And they will actually build themselves as ever-winning experts and take advantage of the weaknesses in humanity. which is greed and the unwillingness to give up when already devoted a lot. When people lose their sensibility, they tend to forget the impossible triangle in investment. And that is the high yield, liquidity, and also security, which refers to low and risk, couldn't coexist at the same time. Well, and when we talk about loss, we have to talk about risk. Risk management is key in any investment. And before you think of making money and become a billionaire, you have to think about how to control your loss and also risks. Usually, those professional investment managers will deeply understand the laws of economics. And, for example, there's categories of different assets which they learn. This is an important system of controlling the risks of different assets. Cash, gold, government, corporate bonds, and also such as the US Treasury bills are all the different types of assets that are considered to be very low in risk, while the investment level bonds, such as the corporate and also other bonds, are considered to be medium level in risk. Pretty complicated or somehow puzzling. So thus people created a rating system in order to classify the different types of assets and make the risk control better. Well, while stocks, like equity, that you're pretty familiar with, they have actually higher level of risk compared to what I mentioned just before. Well, these high-risk products, when you're investing, you have to endure a larger loss. Thus, people created a particular stipulation to protect the investors when they are, buying those stocks, and that is called the stop loss line. In the A-share market, which is the stock market in China, they protect the investors by limiting their loss per day to 10%. Similarly, it also, the ceiling of return is also limited and restricted to 10%. While on the other hand, in other markets such as the US market, there's no such protection and limits against investors. Thus, they will, an investor might possibly lose 80 to 90% of their position overnight in one stock market, which is really creepy. And that's why many of the people who invest in stocks or couldn't understand those economic situations, they might lose really much money. And, unfortunately, the general public do not understand such, economic theories or whatever. And also with that much, with all those cases around us and with all those people losing money, my grandparents, my little sister, and cases in the news, it actually made me feel really sorry and pity for them. Thus, that actually inspired me to create something. And that is, I created the AFF, which stands for Anti-Financial Fraud Club, in my high school year. Our club and our mission is to help and educate those in need, prevent frauds and traps, and also help people better face risks and losses in the future. We're also here to make the world a better place. Well, as I said a while ago, loss never stops coming. Loss is actually, something that's pretty complicated, but it is also something that could easily happen in life. Well, you see, loss would actually, there are actually two lifelong companions in your life, yourself and loss. And loss would actually accompany you to the last moment in your life. Well, it is actually unescapable. And loss is really a double-edged sword. It could easily crash someone down and make life tougher than ever. But on the other hand, it could also work as an incentive to motivate people to succeed in life. Well, what is actually loss? My answer is, it is actually a friend of mine. It could be an old and grumpy, but it could also be a precious and worthy friend of mine. like one of the lyrics that sang, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that's exactly how I interpret loss. What matters most that makes you stand out and conquer the barriers and difficulties in life is how your mindset is, how you take control of loss without, rather than loss controlling you. So why don't we just take loss as a friend in life and treat every loss in life a chance to learn and grow and make you succeed? Ladies and gentlemen, finally, I want to end my speech with one last sentence. And that is, I wish all of you could be the person who faces the loss in life rather than without losing your faith. And this way, then you will turn loss into a blessing and also a lifelong friend. This is my speech, and thank you all for listening.